Hello again. Now then, it's I'm actually recording this just after Christmas in 2023, and I'm quite astounded how many folks have been watching the Christmas with burial story, the not so nice times. And so right, well, those of you that have ever read the storybooks, which you can download and read the stories in chronological order, then you'll know what's coming next. So I did mention in this Christmas of Burial that my life changed, and I went to work for John H. Rundle's for a year, and that was a very amusing time, entertaining, amusing. I was ever so pleased Rundle's gave me a job for a year and set me up. I had an income, and I was able to put my life into some sort of order again after the big crash of losing our house and business. So it was a very lucky time for us to be able to work for somebody else, and I had no real responsibility. I did as I was told. Well, I tried to do as I was told, and so I was driving a crane lorry. Now, this particular time, I don't remember there being any lots of regulations and things, and I never had to do an examination. I just had some lessons on this crane. I was an HGV driver anyway, and quite experienced HGV driver, and so I was let loose with this mobile crane attached to a lorry. I'm just going to do this intro. This is the first short intro about Rundle's, a bit about Rundle's, and I've mentioned apologies to the management of Rundle's. It's not quite the same now as it was when I worked there. The business has changed quite a lot in more recent years, but way back when I was working for them, there's a bit of an intro, explains what they did and where they were and whatever, and how I got involved. But some of there's two very funny crane stories, and how I got my name. I had I was called the Wrecker, because after a certain amount of time, every time I came home, the crane lorry was in a bit of a mess. Something had gone wrong with it, and it wasn't abused. It was just asked to do a lot of work which perhaps were beyond its capabilities. And there we are. So, but the third story is a new nasty, and I didn't come to any harm, but somebody did, and unfortunately, it's a story about that. And all these stories on Buzzsprout on the audio website, and the nasty one has an enormous amount of people have listened to that. So that's going to come at the end. So the first one will be corn bin calamity. It'll follow this. So this is the intro. There'll be corn bin calamity, and then there's the printing press where the actual crane exploded and showered the area around the lorry with all the springs and pistons and everything. It was supposed to be inside the hydraulic pump driving the crane. It exploded, and then in the third story, everything went well. Actually, it went very well for me, but not for some unfortunate other chap who was working in the same factory. It's a story with a real moral, that last one, so watch out for that. So here we are. This is the intro. Then we're going to go on to corn bin calamity, and then the printing press, and then big machine minding. So hope you enjoy the stories. Bit of an intro to them, and there we are. Okay, we're going to begin. This is the introduction to a short series of stories, the Crane Lorry Stories, a collection of stories from John H. Rundle's in about 1984. The stories are taken from It's a Rum Life, Book 4, Volume 1, Northcote, 1984 to 1994. Our circumstances had totally changed, and our lovely home for the last 14 years had been sold
to our neighbour's youngest son, Alan Rundle, and his wife Ruth. Legal procedures were complete and the move to Northcote was imminent. I still had no income or job prospects when, quite out of the blue, my immediate neighbour Ken Rundle, Alan's elder brother and the middle son in the family business, came across his garden one morning and asked me if I had any plans for the immediate future. Evidently their permanent lorry driver, John Brooks, had been diagnosed as having cancer and would most likely be off work for several months. Ken wished me to understand from the very first that the family company wished to keep the job open for John to return to, and wanted me to work on a temporary basis. This suited me just fine, as I had no wish to enter into PAYE employment, as my personal tax situation was, to say the least, unstable, and I could see all my earnings going in tax payments. Rundles were quite happy for me to be self-employed and provide them with weekly invoices for the work I did. I began work virtually straight away. The Rundles family ran, and to this day still run, a thriving agricultural engineering business. It all began with grandfather, who was an agricultural contractor and used traction engines to propel his machines from farm to farm. Those traction engines are still in the family ownership and form the nucleus of their fabulous collection. The business developed over the years into manufacturing machinery and specialist repairs of unusual machinery. Their main annual contract while I was there was servicing and repairing of all the fairground machinery at every Butlins holiday camp. This was an out-of-season job and involved strict timetables to ensure everything was ready for the Easter start to the holiday trade. Rundles employed about 20, including office staff. There was Father John, our immediate neighbour, sons Jack, Ken and Alan, and in the office was Sister Sue and 2 other young ladies. They also ran a thriving iron foundry that was located just across the water from our back garden. The iron foundry was constantly busy producing all types of agricultural castings and specialist work for individual requirements. Much of the work of the firm's Bedford KM 16-ton long wheelbase lorry revolved around the foundry. Special sand for the castings was collected regularly from Derbyshire, and scheduled deliveries of castings were made throughout Lincolnshire and Norfolk. The lorry had a hydraulic mobile crane that was used to move large pieces of machinery. The firm bought and sold heavy metalworking and woodworking machinery. Mostly was initially purchased at specialist auctions and brought back to the yard for repair and storage before resale. There not being many such lorries in the area, Rundles also hired out their vehicle and driver to undertake specialist lifting jobs for the companies. Initially, I had to take a great deal of ribbing from the other workers. Many had known me when I started my own lorries business, and a fair proportion of my work had come from Rundles. It was all very good-natured, though. The work was certainly varied, and I never knew from day to day where the lorry was going or what it was to undertake. The only exceptions were trips away involving nights out. To be fair, they always gave me good notice, so I could plan things at home in my absence. It was the jobs that involved other businesses that brought the most entertainment. There are to follow 3 examples of the type of job that was expected of this crane lorry. Do watch out for these stories. The corn bin calamity, the printing press, and big machinery moving. These stories are to follow. We do hope you've enjoyed this little interlude. brought to you by Cracker Books, written and read by Keith Sanders.
Right, that was the just a quick intro to the crane stories. So well, is this poor? If you like the stories, please give us a like and think about subscribing to the channel and share them. Share the stories with your mates. This hand's better. That's it, because I'm going to put I'm going to put some things up there. They're out that side. I'm going to put some things up here on the other side of the screen in a minute. Right, the links are coming up for the books if you want to download the books, storybooks and the audios, and of course our YouTube channel. So I hope you enjoyed being with us, and thanks ever so much. Until the next time, cheerio.